All right, Sandhiyan, I think we can begin. It's 6:05 now.
Okay,
I'm not able to see you on the video now.
so once the presentation starts, I will turn off the video. Hope that's fine.
Uh, is it an issue if you can you continue keeping the video, your
First,
video?
uh, yeah, I'm not that comfortable.
Okay, fine. No problem. Okay, so we'll start.
Okay,
Welcome to Law Comrade's second webinar, which is part of our ongoing webinar series on child rights and well-being. Today, we are privileged to have with us a remarkable individual whose work has significantly contributed to the prevention of harms and crimes against children and women. Allow me to introduce our esteemed speaker, Mr. Sandhiyan Tilagavati, an engineer turned social activist. Mr. Sandhiyan has dedicated his career to research, advocacy, fieldwork, and policy formulation in the areas of gender and sexuality. His mission is to create safer spaces for everyone, everywhere, through age and gender inclusive dialogue and socio-political gender empowerment in schools, colleges, workspaces, and communities. Mr. Sandhyan's extensive experience includes serving as a corporate social responsibility consultant for the volunteer engagement program at Tata Consultancy Services. He was also a vital member of the policy drafting committee for Feminist Urban Futures, Cities for Women and Girls, held in Delhi in 2018. His dedication to child safety is evident through his training programs for teachers, parents, and students in government schools, focusing on critical issues such as gender sensitization, body, body rights and safety, women's self-defense, among others. His impactful work has not gone unnoticed. He was featured in Sun TV's Namma Ooru Hero in March 2019 and was the recipient of the Awareness Creator Award at in Chennai Young Chennai Awards in 2021. Today, Mr. Sandhyan will share his insights on preventing harms and crimes against children, a topic that is both crucial and timely. His expertise and passion for creating safer environments for vulnerable populations, including children, women, and the LGBT community, makes him an invaluable resource for us all. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Sandhyan Tilagavati to our webinar. So Sandhyan, the forum is yours. You may start with your session.
thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Comrade Subramanian and Ritika, for this wonderful initiative of equipping the young generation into knowing these essential things that would help us in a longer way of creating safe spaces for everyone everywhere. That has been the whole objective or mission of why Aware exists. And it's good to see like on a Saturday evening, on a weekend, these many individuals have committed their time to learn certain aspects of how things in reality looks like. So though we come across all this news or all of that on daily basis, there are certain individuals who also step ahead in terms of equipping themselves in terms of in putting their efforts towards all these issues, so that it's a collective responsibility. It's not just a parent or teacher's responsibility. It's the collective responsibility of every citizens, every individuals who could create a safe space, especially for the children whom we see the most vulnerable. Yeah. So with that, we'll just get into the topic. So, uh, are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, yes, Sandhyan.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So the today's topic being like prevention of crimes and harms against children. So to start with this, first we need to break down certain terms, words that is from the title itself. So let's let's start with the a small word game kind of activity to understand each and every word that we wanted to deeply trying to understand. So let's start with children. Whom do you think children are all about? Like, as most of you are from lower background as well, so you will have a fair idea of until what age we consider as a child. So you can use the chat box to give a overall understanding to every others. Like until which age we consider a person to be a child, and even you can unmute as well and use the space to say like until which age we could consider a person to be a child. Yes, till the age of 18, before 18 years old. Yeah. So we got the right answer. Like till the age of 18, every individual is considered as child. UNCRC Convention of Child Rights, or else India ratified that in 1992 and followed the same 18 years to be the age for considering a person to be of child. So how this age has been considered in terms of considering the physical and mental, and in terms of generally in the layperson term that we call it as maturity is the term that generally used in terms of doing parenting sessions or else teachers training. They often use this word. Until this 18, they won't get maturity. That is why we consider them as children. And sometimes, especially among teachers, they consider children to be who are learning till primary schools, like till fifth standard only we could consider them as children, because after six they are far better. They take individual responsibility. They talk too much. That is the general blame. But uh, from the judiciary point of view, as well from the child rights activist, everyone, from their consultations, we arrived at this point of considering a person to be 18 to be considered as a child, which has been globally observed under UNCRC, but every country ratifies that based on their socio-economic conditions. In India, we consider the same 18 to be that of age. That is, we could align this particular age to be the well-known fact of how we consider a person who can give the rights to vote, or else give access to owning a license to drive on their own. So 18 is a crucial age till which both physically and emotionally they are dependent on an adult for all their needs, care, everything. So that is where this children comes in. So next, let's continue the same activity. So, what do you think harms or crimes against children to be the most well-known or else well-recognized forms of harms or dangers that children are more prone to, or the crimes, the commonly known crimes that we worry or else we care for, or else we are more concerned. So can you list on like well-known harms or crimes that is more prevalent to children?
Someone says kidnapping.
Kidnapping, kidnapping. Thanks for this response. Kidnapping, trafficking, sexual abuse, trafficking, sexual abuse, kidnapping. Yeah. So these are all some. Okay. So what I was asking us, like the most well-known crimes, harms that are more prone or else children vulnerable to certain issues, right? That we come across on daily basis. So since I just wanted to understand what are all the well-known crimes that we care for generally in terms of children. So we have got few responses from the chat box, like kidnapping, neglect, even neglect. Yeah, that is one of the main cause that we concern with. trafficking, kidnapping. So everything comes under the purview of safeguarding children in any of the premises, whether it is in within the homes, or whether it is in a school setting, whether it is in a childcare institution setting, or else whether it is an online environment. Everywhere children are vulnerable. To safeguard them from different harms, different crimes, different dangers that children are exposed to, that is the sole purpose of learning certain things. And here the next word from the title is prevention. So, or else I just wanted to uh, enhance, or else even I wanted to replace the word from prevention to protection, protection of children from harms and crimes. That is also the another way how we can look into this session. Okay, so the common harms or dangers that we have put up into things. So let's try to understand how we could prevent. So the globally there are certain models that there are certain strategies that defines like how crime prevention can be defined. So crime prevention or else protection from children from certain crimes is defined as certain strategies and measures, best practices, or else initiatives that are taken in advance, or else so taken in advance in terms it is more on a preventive way. And second thing is, if the child is already into that environment, already exposed to certain dangers or harms, what is the secondary prevention? We are going to list down 3 different prevention strategies in the next slide. But in overall, the crime prevention is defined as certain strategies, measures, initiatives that was collectively taken to reduce the risk of exposing them into a crime environment or else into a dangerous environment, so that they doesn't let that crime to happen against a child or else any person in general. But since we are dealing with talking more about crime prevention against children, we are putting the onus on children. Okay. At the same time, the crime prevention doesn't alone focus on the preventive part of educating or empowering the children as alone. If the child is already exposed into certain situations, it also guarantees how the child can be protected from the potential harms or else the consequences that the child has already been exposed to such environments. Say, for example, we spoken about kidnapping. We have listed down about sexual abuse. Educating and empowering the children about their body safety, safe and unsafe behaviors, that could be a preventive model of educating on the prevention part that we call it as primary prevention. What if the child has already been in an abusive environment? So here comes the secondary part where the child would be taken care, would be provided psychosocial support. So the crime prevention doesn't alone focus on the primary prevention part alone. It adds up to the next level of taking care of the child, bringing them back to the normal state, or else focusing on the rehabilitation, relief, all of those mechanisms. So that is where the whole holistic or else a comprehensive definition of crime prevention comes in. So globally, there have been 3 different strategies that would be adopted in terms of how we are protecting some vulnerable population from an explosive crime environment. The first and foremost thing is the primary or the general prevention. So this is where we focus more on uh, this is where we focus more in terms of educating and empowering the primary responders. So with our journey of working extensively on child sexual prevention or child abuse prevention, there is a huge strategic or else evidence-based strategy where we focus mostly with the primary primary responders. So we call the parents, caregivers, and teachers to be the primary uh, uh, preventers or else primary responders, because even before the individual or the child gets into that abusive environment, with the right knowledge at the right time, they can equip the children so that they know certain basics, so that they doesn't get involved in certain environments, or even if they are exposed into certain harmful environments, they know how to take care of their safety. So that is where, say for example, commonly known narrative of good touch bad touch is one such example, where children are being taught about that. We will come to talking about the narrative of good touch bad touch later on, but that is one of the example where teaching them about their body safety can be considered as a primary prevention, where parent at homes or else teachers at schools educate the children so that they doesn't get into such sexual abuse in any of the spaces. But in most of the cases, say for example, if the child, say for example, when we do a session in a group of 40 or 50 in one particular class, we go with an intention of primarily preventing from not exposing all those 40 or 50 children into an abusive environment. But after the session gets over, one or two children will come up to us and say like, this is something that I have already encountered, whether we wanted to know whether it is an abuse or not. So in that case, a child has already been into an abusive environment. So now the focus would be on dealing with the secondary prevention of how the child can be completely taken care, how the traumatized or else affected children can be cared, can be protected so that they doesn't get into that environment again. At the same time, they would be rehabilitated back to the normal state where the child can be happily cherishing about their childhood. So that would be the secondary part. So let's talk more on what are all the other primary prevention strategies that we generally focus on. So generally, when we talk about abuse or else any kind of harms that is happening in the childhood, especially as adults, we talk a lot about childhood trauma. We get worried about most of our unlearning process being affected with our childhood trauma that we endured till the age of 18. So we recollect all those things. So on that basis, how we have been treated or how we have been cared in our early childhood years counts a lot in terms of how we have been given a safe space right from our homes, right from our schools, all of that. So on that basis, the most serious thing or else most commonly known uh, thing is how we all have been right from our homes, especially if there is a chance of domestic violence, if there is intimate partner violence that was being shown to us, that is a reflection with which our childhood shapes it. So that is one part. Second part is more on how we are not exposed to any forms of abuse in our childhood. So those kind of education, those kind of awareness at a very early stage could be considered as a primary prevention. And second way, like other things is raising awareness in schools, the child-centric institutions, or else childcare institutions, or else wherever children are mostly seeing, it can be a training institute, it can be a tuition centers, talking more about bullying, internet, online thing, everything. So awareness on the prevention part focuses on the primary prevention or else general prevention. And talking about drugs, so we are listing down all the potential harms a child can be exposed below the age of 18. So awareness on all these components can be considered as a way of primarily protecting from all such harms so that they doesn't get into that environment. So that is one way of not letting them exposed to certain harm or else dangerous environments. Okay. Apart from that, talking more about their rights, talking more comprehensively about what their rights to be and how they can exercise their rights and how they can stand up for other children's rights when they come out to know, talking about 1098, child line, all of these aspects would matter a lot. At the same time, emphasizing a lot on child protection policies, whether it is a gated community, whether it is a residential society, whether it is a school. So everything having a policy in place and implementing that policy through a committee, these are all accounts as a primary prevention modules. So, so next is the secondary prevention. So probably we could talk more of these areas. So secondary prevention comes in place like where there are informal settings where counseling support, where we could have training of youths, especially with our experience of handling issues on this, we upskill or else we create advocates of child rights, advocates of child abuse prevention in colleges, where this youth would take a huge responsibility in gathering this knowledge across the communities that they work with. And another part is when I say like when we focus more on the primary prevention, there are a lot of chances where we encounter disclosures of abuse or else disclosures of harms to the child. So it doesn't have to be abuse all the time, even if it's a risk of substance that they have been enduring, even if they have a situation of feeling self-injury or self-harm, it can be of anything, many harms that we have listed in the chat box. And even beyond that, wherever we go with an awareness, there is a guaranteed situation where we also end up with a disclosure of certain harms that the children is struggling or else bothered with. So in that case, us facilitators, as people, we should also be equipped enough to handle that situation in a sensitive way. At the same time, we should also be knowing certain contexts, certain ways on how to take care of the child's disclosure. So that is where providing them psychosocial support and helping them to navigate the reporting procedures, legal recourses, all of that, and uh, uh, instilling confidence in them to talk about that same issue with their parents, teachers. So collectively talking, creating a safety network model for the child falls in this the secondary prevention. And third is the tertiary or the reactive prevention. This is where we focus on the other stakeholders, especially involved. So whenever we have conversations in the school setting or else a gated community setting, mostly it would be parents and teachers who plays a major role. And whenever we hit news on child abuse or else child marriage or any other forms of harms that the children are mostly prone with, we blame the parents. Why are they not talking, or else why they doesn't spend much of their time with the children? And it's the ultimate responsibility of the parent to take care. So the onus or the burden is completely falls on one particular stakeholder, where all others safely free from their responsibility. But with our experience of working on this sensitive issues, we put the tertiary or the reactive prevention part to be on the tertiary responders, where we call the police officials, law enforcement agencies, medical professionals, policy makers, who could create modules, who could create comprehensive or else curriculums or else sensitive modules or else training capacity building programs by which, because say for example in the secondary part we are taking care of the children, bringing them back to normal. But if the children has been reporting to other stakeholders, like obviously a judiciary path is going to be happening. In that case, if the children are exposed to an insensitive or else uh, under equipped personals, be it a police, be it a lawyer, be it a counselor, in that case they are exposed to re-victimization and re-traumatization. So on that basis, tertiary prevention includes all other stakeholders who are in the purview of child safety network or else the collective responsibility that we talk about, protection of children, child protection services. All of these personals would come under this tertiary. Okay. So next is children's participation. So one way when we are talking more about protecting children from all risk, all harm, and all dangers, everything. But another way, especially after 2000s, we could see, especially in India, we could see a lot many incidents where children also take up certain things in their hand, where they get exposed, or else they become reflective enough of doing certain harms and dangers back to other children. So whenever we go happen to conduct sessions on child abuse prevention in schools and gated communities, there are at least 1 to 5 cases that we end up receiving from child to child abuse cases. But the intensity varies because there are multiple forms of uh, uh, risky behaviors that we see among children, where they take up violence or else they take up abusive behaviors in their hand and they just reflect back. That is not completely the responsibility of, or else it's not the offense that they are creating intentionally. They have been influenced, they have been manipulated, they have been treated in a way where they give back in the known forms that they are used to. So we will see more of that as well. But let's talk about the abuse part that we have detailedly like listed down in the chat parts as well. Mostly that we have seen from our own experience of how abuse can be defined. So, in general term, abuse is something which would be used in the literary or else even in the judiciary part when the persons who are victimized, who are potential victims of that, could be of below 18. When the person's age is above 18, instead of using abuse, harassment is the term that would be used. So, but the most common forms, the classical four forms that talks about abuses: physical, verbal, emotional, and sexual. These are all the four most common. But with ages being going on and with several advancement, and another way of having preventive strategies of certain behaviors, there is an advancement, or else there are certain strategies where perpetrators or abusers use it in a strategic way. They come up with new way of luring or else new way of offending a child. So on that basis, there are several other forms by which abuse happens to. So abuse is defined as something that is making a person feel unsafe or uncomfortable, whether it is done with consent or not. Say, for example, if a child is consenting to be picked or else to be setting up on someone whom they feel comfortable, but over a period of, say, for example, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the child is not feeling comfortable. Okay, just because the child gives consent at the early or else at the beginning, it doesn't mean the child has to be compelled or else forced to sit on someone's lap. So this is one thing. But child, considering a child who is powerless, voiceless, or else who doesn't consider as a person or an individual over there, wouldn't open up their mouth to say, I want to get down. Or else, even if they do that in a body language or else in an indirect way, their voice wouldn't be recognized or else even respected. So that is where consent is the key term that could also be considered whenever we talk about abuse or harassment in any of the context, whether it is child or whether it is an adult. So abuse is something unwanted or untoward, which is making a person feel unsafe or uncomfortable, whether it is done with consent or not. Okay, so that is the common term. But when it comes to different forms of abuse, when there is a physical contact between the person and the child, then that becomes, so here I'm meaning person because the person who is giving that abusive behavior or else unwanted behavior can be an adult or even a child. So that is where a person from 0 to any age can be considered. But when it is child abuse, the receiving end, the person who is at the receiving end should be of below 18. That is where the child is considered as the receiving end. Okay. So on that note, so here even in the presentation, I have listed about seven forms. So first is physical form. When there is a physical contact between the person and the child, it doesn't have to be sexual in nature, but physically hitting them, physically pushing or pulling them, or else forcibly kissing, forcibly hugging. So forcibly kissing, hugging, this all comes as a sexual form. But when it is done to harm, when it is done to physically hurt them, all this would account as physical abuse. And next is verbal abuse. When it is done verbally through words, if they have been mocked, if they have been blamed, if they have been criticized, if they have been scolded, all of this makes them feel violated, or else all of this makes them feel hurt or else offended. In that way, all these forms would be accounted as verbal. And next is emotional. Emotionally violating their personal space or its privacy by comparing a child to another, by which they put down their confidence level, challenging their self-esteem. All of this could be considered as an emotional thing. Next is psychological. Psychological is one aspect where neglect would also be considered under the psychological abuse, where as children, everyone longs for love and affection. When a child doesn't get that, they always feel isolated. They feel like they are deprived or else they doesn't deserve anyone's love. So that is making a person or a child feel not being themselves in any of the spaces that they be in. So that is another form of psychological abuse or neglect that's been a classically discussed thing. And next is sexual abuse. So sexual abuse would take, so whenever an abuse is done with a sexual intent, then that becomes sexual abuse. So in sexual abuse itself, it it takes two different forms. One is direct or contact forms, another is indirect or non-contact forms. So direct or contact form would take physical form of sexual abuse. When a child is being touched, whenever there is a physical contact that is being made with the child with a sexual intent, say, for example, when I say like forcible kissing, forcible hugging, that becomes a physical form of sexual abuse. And when a child is being blamed or is scolded, where the child is made to feel hurt or else worried, that becomes verbal abuse. When the words used are all sexually obscene or else sexually explicit, that becomes verbal form of sexual abuse. Okay. So similarly, emotional abuse, when the child is being emotionally violated with a sexual intent, showing them pictures, showing them pornography, showing them videos, by which this child is being manipulated or this child is being sexually exploited, then becomes where the child becomes emotionally violated, then that becomes a emotional form of sexual. So the impact of the child is receiving at the receiving end creates or else with which we can consider whether it is physical, whether it is verbal, whether it is emotional. So sexual abuse would take different other forms. Similarly, when it is financial abuse, by financially offering them or else bribing them or else by giving them resources of certain things by which they make sure an abuse is happening through at the same time sexually violating, then it becomes a financial form of sexual abuse. And there is another form where spiritual abuse is another term that we also use. So when a person has been abused with the spiritual ideology that two or more individuals carry among themselves, then that becomes a spiritual abuse. When the spiritual ideology is being used to sexually exploit a child, then that becomes a spiritual form of sexual abuse. Okay, so sexual abuse would itself will take a different other forms of how it's been happening, how the child was being groomed, how the child was being able to give consent or else not consent. So in all those ways there are different other forms by which sexual abuse could happen through. And last is digital abuse or cyberbullying, when the same form, or say for example, stalking is something that we know commonly, like when a person is following for certain needs, making them feel unsafe or uncomfortable, that becomes a stalking. But when a person has been on followed online through the virtual space, like when they are being coming online, what kind of posts that they are making, and who are the friends that they are choosing through, what are all the pages that they follow through, this becomes cyber bullying or else cyber stalking. So whatever spaces, what are things that do happen in the physical world, if it's been happening in the virtual world, that makes a person feel worried or else disturbed or else uncomfortable or else unsafe, all those becomes digital abuse. Okay, so let me share other thing. Till now, does anyone have anything to ask or else any questions to share? Because I'm moving on to the next detailed version of another presentation.
Participants, you may ask any questions. Uh, as of now, from the content that has been covered, if you have any questions, you can ask.
Yeah, I think the drug abuse is one of the main abuse that's happening in society now among the children.
Yeah. So when we are talking about different other forms, different harms, dangers that we are risking our children, so I have told about different preventive strategies, like globally, like there are the pyramid of preventive strategies that I have listed, right? So in one thing that I could share with you all is, so we have been keenly working in the areas of like almost 8 years. We have been extensively working in the areas of child abuse prevention, following those three modules. And for the last 2 years, we have been actively working on creating awareness on substance. Similarly, like child marriage, child labor, there are different other harms or else dangers that our children are exposed to. So what I would like to say is, from the next part, we are going to share more detail about how we could safeguard children, taking one particular issue at hand, and how we could engage those three models like primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention, by which we could adopt certain modules by which we could collectively work on specific items that we see with a group of children. Say, for example, tomorrow when you get into a children's home where you see bullying is one common thing that the children are more prone to, or else uh, online digital safety is one thing that they are more prone to. We could come up with our own preventive strategies by which we could benchmark certain best practices that we are seeing from now to adopt modules. So I would also like to share one best practice that was done collectively. See, in most of the time, with our own experience of working with different stakeholders, we have seen that they are shedding their responsibility or else passing on the blame to different other stakeholders where they feel like I'm not responsible for this. So that is the common thing. Even when we go and reach out to a school to ask for sessions, they say like parents are the ultimate responsibility and parents could be more comfortable to talk about all these issues. Why don't you go to their residential space or else gated community and talk to them? Similarly, when we go and reach out to a parent in a gated community, they pass on this responsibility to teachers, saying like parents are the ultimate persons who can teach our children well and better. These are all topics that we haven't spoken enough. We are not equipped, or else we are not even confident about. So this is the reality that we are seeing with the primary preventers itself. But when you are talking about another serious issues like substance, child marriage, and other social issues that our children are more prone to, there are other stakeholders who are also held responsible, but their sensitivity and their intentions of safeguarding children in those areas or is with those issues seems to be a wide range where we couldn't tackle or else where we couldn't move up to the next level. But still, with the benchmarking of what we have seen with addressing child abuse in itself, quite seems to be a like that is where we say like prevention is possible because as someone who's working all this year, we have seen that on ground, like when we are educating them, when we are focusing on the primary prevention, whether the parents and teachers are navigating those conversations or not, as individuals, as socially responsible citizens, when we take up this conversation to our children, we hardly get like when I say like when we reach out to a student of 40 or 50 group, ideally we come up with 1 or 5 disclosures. But what we need to see is more than 40 or 45 children are getting those awareness at first hand, by which they are getting educated and empowered even before they encounter any of those situations. So that is the another motivating factor with which we have to run because when that has been a tiring efforts for all of us in terms of when we end up with disclosures of 1 or 5 children at the end of the session, we work with them, we continuously follow with them, we guide them to go through the reporting procedures, legal recourses, all of that. And one point of time, it been an open shut thing where the children would be backlashed, or else children withdraw the cases, or the family withdraw the cases. And as people who have worked over there, we felt like helpless in certain situations. Here, the demotivating factor for all of us is we weren't able to provide justice to the child. That hurts us a lot. But what we need to see the other end is because we see it's a collective responsibility where every other stakeholders with the same sensitivity, with the same intention, can only let that happen. But what we fail to miss here is the other 40 to 45 children who are getting awareness in the first phase, by which they are getting equipped at the even before they encounter to any of the situations, so that they are given a knowledge about all those things on how to handle that situation in a smarter way. Okay. So with that, I'll just continue with this particular part, like how our preventive strategies with respect to child abuse has been working all these years. Okay. So I'm just playing this video.
How many words?
3 words.
4.
4, okay. Hindi, English? Hindi. Okay.
Sugar.
Very good. First word.
Papa.
Papa. Baby.
Baby.
Papa se chota. Papa se
Papa.
chota.
Chacha.
Chachi chacha please.
Okay.
Chacha Bhatija.
Chacha Bhatija.
No. First half.
Chacha.
Chacha. Okay. First word. Chacha.
Chacha.
Okay.
Okay. Second word.
Mine.
Hindi.
Hindi.
Papa ka.
Me. तेरा तेरे मेरे सपने मेरे मेरे
Mere.
मेरे
Chacha. Mere. Third word. Okay. T-shirt.
जीन्स
Shirt.
नो
कपड़े?
कपड़े राइट
कपड़े. चाचा मेरे कपड़े.
ये ऐसी तो कोई फिल्म नहीं है
बच्चों की खामोशी बहुत कुछ बोलती है उन्हें ध्यान से सुनिए कहीं कोई अपना ही उसे नुकसान तो नहीं पहुंचा चुप ना रहे चाइल्ड सेक्सुअल अब्यूज से लड़े
So this is just to set the mood and emotions of what we are going to see in the next part. Probably with that, usually we play this video with a disclaimer in the front, but the session that we are, or else the content that we all have been informed well and clear, so that you all get to know like what are the serious things that we are going to learn. So with that, we are talking more about child sexual abuse in the next 20 or 30 minutes to understand how prevention can be adopted for different responders, as I said, like primary responders involving parents and teachers, secondary responders involving counselors, medical professions, all of that, tertiary responders involving legal and law enforcement agencies, police, all of that. So let's see like how our work has been. So let me look into this. Okay. So as I said, like we are going to talk about child sexual abuse under POCSO 2012 Act. Child sexual abuse is defined as someone's like it's a violation of a child's body part, and primarily. So when we say like violence or else harassment in general would happen between persons under three common factors, it would be exerted against a person. It could be person who's upholding power, it can be authority, or it can be control. That is the three main factors with which violence would perpetuate. But when it comes to child sexual abuse, beyond this three power, authority, control, there are three other factors that plays a major role. That is love, trust, and affection. These are all the three factors that comes in first, because involving the children in terms of in consideration of providing them love, it could be in a love-giving relationship, it could be a trust-giving relationship, or else it might be done in terms of showing them affection beyond power, authority, and control. So in that basis, it is not the child's body that is being affected, but beyond that, there is a huge the child, the person would be affected mentally, that would be enduring the pain or trauma for several years, even lifetime. That is something that we fail to recognize or else fail to get to know, especially in the legal context, or else persons who are handling survivors of child abuse. That is something that we have to be mindful of. Okay. So, as I said earlier, there are two different forms. That is how the POCSO also categorize different crimes, different forms of sexual crimes. As well, it has denoted certain punishments for each of the crimes. So the first is direct or contact forms. When there is a physical contact between the child and the person, those are all the things that would be like it could be a physical touch, it could be penetration of sexual organ to sexual organ, or it could be penetration of external objects over sexual organ. It could be of any such things. But the indirect or non-contact forms are, it can be a look, it can be a talk, it can be a gesture, it can be a body language, it could be exhibitionism, or it could be exhibiting them, or else showing them any pictures or videos, that are sexually obscene or else sexually explicit, all of this comes under indirect or non-contact forms. POCSO defines all of these as sexual harassment, for which 3 to 5 years is an imprisonment that has been granted under POCSO. So, perception. So, whenever we deal with the primary preventers, especially the parents and teachers or the caregivers and childcare institutions, we wanted to give them a brief understanding about what is the problem. Say, for example, whether it is child marriage, whether it is child labor, whether it is trafficking, or whether it is substance abuse. First, we need to give them a brief understanding about the issue in detail so that let them understand the magnitude and intensity of the problem much. That is where we could equip them in terms of how they could play an active role in protecting the children from that particular harm. Okay, so on that basis, there are certain misconceptions that would be prevailing in the society. We wanted to shatter that myth so that they move on with that myths with the right facts so that they could be the champion of that cause. So on that basis, there are certain myths that has been listed. So only strangers abuse children. So this has been a commonly known thing with most of the parents. But over the years, this perception has changed with seeing like how known people are harming children, or else cases of how their close relative, own parents, and own teachers are abusing children. That has been changed. And with POCSO till 2007, because that has been a year how why POCSO has been created. There is a study of child abuse which has been created, uh, which surveyed among like 12,500 children and 2,400 adults. So it is a study that was conducted to understand child abuse patterns, different forms of child abuse that could have happened below the age of 18. So this survey was conducted by Ministry of Child and Women Development. So it's a government survey. So out of the respondents, 53% have admitted that they've gone through one or other forms of abuse. So out of that 53%, 60% admitted that they know their abusers. Okay, so they come up to a point like saying like, it is not the strangers, 60% of us know our abusers. So it's already someone whom we know. It could be the family members, it is someone we been with, someone whom we trust, someone whom we respect. Those are all the persons who has abused us. So that was the study that was done in 2007. And the latest study that was conducted by World Vision and UNICEF, it was a collective survey that was done in 2022. That survey says like 95% of the respondents said like they know their abusers, and especially crimes that have been reported in NCRB or else even child abuse cases. 95% of those cases claims that the children or the survivors knows their abusers. So where do we see this huge gap is someone we all have been taught right from our childhood saying that strangers are danger. So as children, as individuals who are powerless and voiceless, knows how to be with strangers or else how to avoid strangers. We doesn't get near to a stranger, or if we doesn't receive anything being offered by a stranger, we are more careful. But we have never been told that the so-called respectful or else lovable persons could also harm us. That is one of the main reasons children are made to trust, children are made to believe, children are made to be with known people, by which we could see the other ways around as well. Because as strangers aren't able to access a child, they take time to invest their time, months, years in terms of getting a child into the trustable environment, and later on they get into an abusive things. So this is one of the classical things. So beyond strangers, there are known people, trustable people, lovable people who abuse children. And next is only men sexually abuse children. It's like almost 97 to 98% of the cases have been reported in terms of having men as the predators or else abusers. But it doesn't mean our conversations have to be more comprehensive or else even holistic in sense. If you're just showing one particular gender to be the potential abuser,
Sandhyan, your voice is not audible. Sandhyan audible to others?
No, ma'am.
No, I am also not able to hear.
Okay, okay.
I think the speaker has left the meeting and he'll join back due to some technical issue.
Sorry. There is a power cut here. So I'm just
Okay.
listening from my mobile data.
Yeah, all right, no problem.
So is the screen share is still there or else I need to?
No, the screen sharing is not there now.
Okay, one second. Just so, so I don't want much detail about this. The strategy is simple. To keep our audience live about one particular issue, we need to address upon certain misconceptions and get them to a factual data about that issue to make them understand the prevalence of that issue, why it's happening, and how much number that has been affected, so that it gives them a urge to be a part of the role play, so that they could collectively understand what their role could be. So this is one of the areas. So we give a brief understanding about the conception, so that it can move from zone to a more knowledgeable zone. They,
Sandhyan?
I think there's some issue with the internet again. Yeah, he's joined back. Sandhyan, you are on mute.
is it fine now?
Yeah, you're audible now, but your voice started cracking since you connected with mobile data.
Is it fine now?
Yeah, better. Yeah. Yeah, the screen is also visible. You can continue.
Oh, to be we make why it's being successful, whether uh,
Sandhyan, your voice is breaking now again. Breaking too much. We request the participant to kindly be patient.
is it fine now, Subramani?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Okay, so I've joined directly from the mobile. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But the screen is not visible now.
Okay.
Possible you can share the PPT to us, so maybe we can.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you can share the Canva link and we can
Okay.
share it.
Okay. One second.
Yeah.
So I have shared it.
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
website.
I'll share the screen now.
Okay.
Just give me a
So
second.
I'll navigate with that. Yeah. So meanwhile, while Subramani is working on that, so I'll just continue.
Yeah.
The first part is making them understand about the issue, giving them factual data. Second thing is asking, like letting them understand about why children are being vulnerable to that particular issue, whether it is child marriage. Say, for example, if you're talking about child marriage, we can discuss more on the tradition, cultural part, why children, or especially the girls who have been forced to such practices, or whether if you're talking about child labor, we can talk about the poverty, or else the economic empowerment, or else whether it is disinterest over the children. So what all the reasons why that issues are happening, we can talk in those context of letting our audience know about how their active role could help them understand different perceptions. Say, for example, when I'm talking about child abuse or else neglect, we ideally talk about if the parental care or else parental the time spent with parents could be more helpful in terms of what the child is struggling hard to share their emotions or else open up. That would be the way forward in which a parent can be a more acts as a safe space so that it doesn't let the child to go through a serious forms of abuse. So we can collectively understand what are the different ways by which a particular issue is happening, by which our audience are equipped in a way that they could take part towards that. Okay, so next probably we'll go to prevention of CSA. Probably you can, Subbu, you can go to the 17th slide where there is a video. So we'll just take it from there. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, it's in Tamil. I will just share you the another link.
Okay.
Directly play that. That is in English, so that every audience can watch that.
Okay.
So this is the video that I've shared over WhatsApp. You can just stream it from different slide, moving on from the presentation. So this is one video that we generally share, like in equipping children, or else whether it is a parental session or a teacher session. We just play this video for helping them to understand different narratives, different conversations, or else different contents that we can usually help them to teach children on their body safety and how they can safeguard themselves from different forms of abuse. Okay, so it's quite long video, but it will have different parts of how we are equipping a child and giving them the bodily autonomy in creating the agency of the children, all of that. Okay, yeah.
You are muted.
Sorry. What I was asking is whether I should start from the beginning or is there any
Yeah.
specific timestamp?
Yeah, you can start from the beginning.
Okay,
So
just give me a second.
Yeah.
Is audio, can you guys hear the audio?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ravi lives in an apartment in a big city. He has many friends and he loves to play cricket with them. Sometimes he likes to buy peanuts from the street seller. Ravi's best friend is Rani. Rani and Ravi like doing things together. They read books, color pictures, play marbles, and sometimes they sit together and listen to songs on the radio. Off often they also sing their favorite song together.
I like my round head, it's a place for my thoughts. I like my small ears, they wiggle a lot. I like my round head, it's a place for my thoughts. I like my small ears, they wiggle a lot. I like my chin, it's right below my chin. I like myself. I like myself. I like my roughness, I like how they bend. I like my tiny toes, they point the way I go. I like my roughness, I like how they bend. I like my tiny toes, they point the way I go. I like my black hair, it grows from here to there. I like myself. I like my pet dog, we love to romp and play. I like my best friend who comes to spend the day. I like my pet dog, we love to romp and play. I like my best friend who comes to spend the day. But there are times I like to be alone. I like myself. I like myself.
One day Rani fell ill and Ravi did not have anyone to play with. All his other friends in the apartment complex were busy with one thing or the other. When Ravi saw the peanut seller, he was excited. He came out into the street to buy some peanuts. The seller wrapped some in a paper cone. As he gave it to Ravi, he held Ravi's hand and stroked it. Ravi did not like it. He pulled away and ran home. The next day, he spoke about it to Rani.
I didn't like the way the peanut seller held my hand. It made me scared and uncomfortable.
It happened to me too, Ravi. I have an uncle who always used to hug me in a way I don't like. It made me uncomfortable. I told him to stop and I told my mother as well. Since then, he does not hug me. You too must talk to an older person, Ravi. Would you like to talk to my mother about what happened?
Ravi hesitated. He was scared that Rani's mother would be angry if he told her. He also thought that maybe what happened with the peanut seller was not important.
No, it's all right.
Don't be scared, Ravi. My mother can help you, I'm sure.
Ravi agreed. The children ran to Rani's mother and told her what happened with the peanut seller. Rani's mother listened carefully. She took them into the kitchen and gave them hot samosas and warm milk. Then she said,
Ravi, I'm very glad you told me this. It was a brave thing to do. There are some things I want to talk to you about. Sometimes when people touch you and you don't like it, or you feel scared or unsafe, you have to say no.
Is it like how I felt with the peanut seller, Auntie?
Yes, exactly like that. You were scared, were you not, when he held your hand and rubbed it? That is the time to say no. You know, sometimes when someone tickles you too much and you don't like it, well, that is also a time to say no. You have to also say no when an older or bigger person wants to touch your private body parts. These are the parts of your body that are covered by your underclothes. When you feel unsafe with anyone touching you, just say a loud and clear no. Shall we sing a song to remember when to say no?
Yes.
The children listened carefully to Rani's mother sing and repeated after her.
Crossing the streets when the signal says stop. Swimming in deep waters when lifeguard says not. Crossing the streets when the signal says stop. Swimming in deep waters when lifeguard says not.
Kites on rooftops with parapet low. These are some things to which I say no.
These are some things to which I say no.
Lengthy long tickles that don't feel quite right. Rough shoddy games that give me a fright.
Lengthy long tickles that don't feel quite right. Rough shoddy games that give me a fright.
Chocolates and candy from strangers unknown. These are some things to which I say no. People who hug me too long and too tight, or touch me in ways that I really dislike.
People who hug me too long and too tight, or touch me in ways that I really dislike.
These make me feel unsafe and frightened, and so these are some things to which I say no.
These are some things to which I say no.
These are some things to which I say no.
One day, when Ravi and Rani were playing with marbles, an older and bigger boy came over and wanted to play with them. Rani thought he was a new boy in the building and invited him to join them. After some time, the boy said,
I know a new game. It is a secret game. It will be our own special secret game. You can't tell anyone about this. It is called Doctor Doctor. I will be the doctor and both of you can be my patients. Come closer. I need to examine your body.
The boy came closer. Ravi felt so scared that he did not say a word. Rani remembered what her mother had said and shouted,
No, no, we don't want to play this game with you.
Rani took Ravi's hand and they ran up to Rani's house. Rani told her mother what had happened. Rani's mother hugged the children and said,
Good girl, I'm happy you said no. Always remember the song we have learnt and never be afraid to say no. Also remember that what happened was not your fault. Always tell someone if an older or bigger person tries to scare you or trick you. I am so glad you came and told me.
Rani and Ravi felt much better. They ran back downstairs to continue their game of marbles, and soon their other friends from the apartment building came to join them.
Something has happened that's bothering you, and you are not sure just what to do. If you think someone is trying to trick you, here is something that you should do. Tell your mom, tell your dad, if you are scared or if you are sad. Keep on telling till someone tells you, I will help you, I surely help you. Tell a teacher, tell a friend, someone to help you make this end. Keep on telling till someone tells you, I will help you, I surely help you. remember a simple rule at home, at the park, or even at school. Don't keep secrets, don't keep it inside. You have got nothing, just nothing to hide. You have got nothing, just nothing to hide.
Yeah, we can pass. Yeah. So thank you so much. So this video, usually we play it for different sets of audience. It's not just intended for children. So usually for child prevention sessions, like direct if the audience is children, we play this in parts. We'll just split like 3 parts or else 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something like that, and we break in between and summarize, and we'll just ask them to process it, and we'll ask certain questions, and we'll come back. Similarly, if it's a parent, we'll just ask like how the parent has been more sensible or else more reactive or else responding in a better way. So as people, especially who are attending the session, who are going to take up this conversation further, we advise or else we recommend in a way where our resources can be comprehensive, full enough, at the same time covers holistically. Say for example, the first time when I was talking about good touch, bad touch, so I just wanted to ratify the term that has been commonly used, because touch is not the only thing that can make a person feel unsafe or uncomfortable when it's being a child. It can be a look, it can be a talk, it can be a gesture, it can be a body language, it can be the picture that they have been shown to, or else a video. So it covers different other forms of sexual abuse. We've spoken about contact and indirect, contact and direct, or else non-contact or indirect, right? So there are several forms. So when you are narrowing down to one particular narrative alone, we are giving them an idea that these are all the things that doesn't need much of the attention from the parents. So when you're talking about touch is the only serious thing that you have to come back to us and say, there are abuse would always happen in a non-contact form when it has been done by a known person. So it would have happened like 3 months earlier, where the child would have been introduced to pornographic picture, else videos, or else talking in obscene things, or else explicit things, which a child doesn't have clue about whether it has to be told or not. So that is the first thing. And second thing is, so whenever we are checking up different resources to put it to our audience, say for example, here there have been several videos for us to use it in sessions like this. So Chilean has created Komal as one of the videos, and there is another video where in Malayalam it's Nivin Pauli who has done a video on that. In Tamil it was Shivakarthikeyan who has done, using the actors in a potential way to use it against the pattern. But the reality is, even in those cases, it doesn't cover the full aspect of the narratives that should be told to other children or else even adults. So we have to see like what are all the different aspects that the resource is failing to cover, so we can come up to it. So even in this video, we say, as parent, only a mom has been involved. When we come up to a video where both the parents are involved in a thing, that checkbox gets complete. So like this, we can introspect of different resources that are available to be shown for creating awareness for different sets of audience. And same way, when we are going to do this particular part with the like involving the primary preventers like parents and teachers, how the parent is involved, how the parent has responded to the situation, whether the child has been blamed by the parent or not, or else how the situations have been better.
And then we are not able to hear you.
So we can equip ourselves in different resources that are available to us in different languages, so that to bring it to the audiences, like whether it is a child, whether it is a parent, whether it is a lawyer, based on them, we could give the right way of handling that primary prevention or secondary prevention or tertiary prevention based on those areas. So, and another thing that we have to be mindful of is creating a relationship, whether it is a parent and children, having that safe space conversation to be back. Say, for example, here we have seen a wonderful relationship between Ravi and Rani, because of which Ravi doesn't hesitate to talk about it to Rani, because of which Rani was able to take up that conversation to her mother. So that is where the bridge works, right? So at least we need to create one safe space. And another part is the repercussions. Say, for example, the child may be isolated, the child may be completely withdrawn from the issue that they are battling with, whether it is abuse in this context, or else even substance, or else uh, 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 trafficking. So we have different issues that we have spoken in the first, right? So with any of the issues that the child has been exposed to, they will exhibit certain signs and symptoms. So, if we are equipping ourselves of how a child can be withdrawn and under what circumstances a child would be physically violated or else emotionally being affected in terms of um, showing anger, showing grief, showing depression. So, these are all other ways. So, the secondary prevention mainly focuses on three different signs and symptoms. So, first would be the physical part, second is the emotional reaction, third is the behavioral changes. So when an equipped adult is able to recognize those behavioral changes or else emotional changes that we are seeing with these children, that is also one of the with which early prevention could happen in. Because probably a child would be in a tougher situation of battling that issue. The child wouldn't have been confident or else comfortable enough to talk with the persons that they trust. But if the adult who's caring and concerning knows about this possible signs and symptoms, they could pitch in to understand a child is in a risky situation or else a harmful situation. So they could intervene at the earliest stage so that it doesn't let the child to go through an extreme forms of abuse. So that is the secondary thing. And third is obviously putting the onus to different other stakeholders, where the prevention could also happen from knowing the possible ways of how grooming works. Okay. Probably, Subbu, you can go through that slide. Yeah, next. Grooming is one way towards the end, I guess. Yeah. Next. Next. Okay. Oh, probably this presentation doesn't have that, I guess. Okay. So the third is completely putting on the onus of, yeah. So these are all the signs and symptoms I was mentioning, the physical signs, physical symptoms that we get up with. So in context of child abuse, we have listed out what all the possible symptoms. Secondly, it will have behavioral patterns, behavioral changes the child would be exhibiting if the child is going through an abuse. Third is the emotional impact the child would be ended up with. Say, for example, if you are covering child marriage as an issue or else substance as an issue, we need to possibly put down those information into our audience and we'll just take our necessary things to be equipping them with those important information so that they would be able to understand well and prior, so that if the child is already going through a situation of being handled or else being manipulated or is controlled by someone who is misusing or exploiting them for substance, those possible signs and symptoms would help them to understand my child is in some disturbed phase or else my child is being controlled by someone. So they would intervene at that stage and they would go. And similarly, if a child is being exposed to pornography, there are certain equipped ways on how to handle that as well. So we need to understand the issue first in detail and the comprehensive understanding of different signs and symptoms towards that, so that whether it is a parental session or else whether it is a law enforcement training, we need to equip those adults accordingly. Okay. So in our sessions of handling child abuse prevention, especially with the tertiary stakeholders like law enforcement, police, and lawyers, we'll talk more on the trauma part, how to handle disclosures, how to sensitively handle that, how to respond to them, and what are the words, do's and don'ts, how their words could uh, traumatize these children. So these are all the ways by which we could focus on the tertiary prevention, engaging different other stakeholders, especially from the law enforcement and other parts. Okay. So these are all the words. So probably next, can you move like physical, science, emotional? Yeah, next. Okay. So this is just one of the pattern with which we say like how children can be protected from child abuse, especially in context of equipping them with the right knowledge at the right time. And secondarily, involving parents and teachers to navigate these conversations through them. whether it is in the home setting or else even in the school setting. So these are all the primary prevention part. Secondary is where we've spoken about the signs and symptoms that can be equipped with primary responders or else the secondary responders by knowing that they could intervene at the earliest stage so that the child wouldn't be going through an extreme forms of abuse. So it is, if it is in the context of child abuse, you can use this. But if it is of different other issues, whether the child has been constantly groomed by someone over the online space or something like that, in that basis, we need to come up with those strategies, those mechanisms, or else those information to equip our adult. And thirdly, like tertiary people, like law enforcement, other talking about the way of handling and responding the situation and not furtherly re-traumatizing and re-victimizing the children. That plays a major role. So these are all the basic strategies that we have been using for in terms of just handling child abuse as one of our problem statement. But if the problem statement is something similar to that of different other issues that we have spoken or is listed in the context, we need to come up with those contexts. But the idea behind that is whichever area that we have been working, we need to have a comprehensive language that includes every other possible situations, strategies. At the same time, if we're failing to miss one particular part in one particular session, probably the predators would come up with new things. Say, for example, I would just give an example of how COVID situations has worsened the thing. We felt like COVID situations has made children being more safe within their homes, but children who are at risk of being with their own abusers in their home doesn't have any other resort just to be with them. This is one thing. And with our exposures and experience of working with different children in schools, 70% of the disclosures happens in the school setting. And for almost 2 years, the children doesn't have any other ways to open up what they have been going through. That is the challenge. And it has a lot of other emotional and psychological impacts over the children, especially with the social isolation and social emotional well-being being affected. These are all other ways. So the thing is, in those spaces, predators have advanced their skill, advanced their strategies to adopt online sexual grooming. So most of the people who doesn't have that physical access to abuse a child, they get equipped to handle this online thing. But as someone who's working like me or else like you, who wanted to stop or else who wanted to prevent or else protect the child from potential harm, are we equipping ourselves? Are we advancing our knowledge? Are we advancing our skill? That is also one of the major things that we need to ask ourselves. When a predator is stepping up to every situation to advance their skill, we also equally need to upskill our knowledge strategically, advance our ways, intervention modules, all of that, so that it gives a foolproof to go with the ultimate objective of safeguarding from all these potential harms. Okay, yeah. So that is the only request. So we need to keep learning continuously and evolving with the strategies that new different harms being exposed to the children, how a particular case has been happening because of which a new strategy has been adopted by a predator. So we can come up to a new module of having that as an inclusion to our existing intervention module, so that that is also being covered as part of our training sessions or else awareness program. So that is one area that we as advocates or else we as agents who wants to stop or else protect children can be evolving a saver. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much, Sandhyan. Participants are, if you have any questions, you can post them on the chat box, or you can also unmute yourself and ask.
Abuse and sexual abuse. Yeah. So physical abuse, we know like when a parent is hitting the child, when a teacher is hitting the child, these all accounts as a physical abuse. When a behavior is physically violating a child to feel hurt or else to harm them without a sexual intent, that becomes a physical abuse. Sexual abuse is something, can be physical, can be verbal, can be online, anything. But when a physical form of sexual abuse is defined as something that is done with a sexual intent, say for example, if a child is being hit, that becomes physical abuse. When the child is being touched inappropriately over their private parts or else over any other body part that is sexually made, say for example, when a child is being touched over their hair, that is not a private part, but still if that touch is being done with a physical that is done with a sexual intent, say for example, the example that we have seen in the video, right? The seller touches the child in his hand with the sexual intent of making the child feel unsafe or uncomfortable. That becomes a sexual abuse. Okay, so any physical contact, it can be a hug, it can be a touch, it can be a kiss, it can be a forcible, coerced thing done with a sexual intent accounts as sexual abuse. Okay, yeah. Even people can unmute yourself and ask the questions directly. That is also allowed.
Gayatri actually asked why no strict and laws and quick judgment to stop these kind of abuses.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Sandhiyan, you want to add any points?
Okay, so when we comparatively see, law is also evolving with so many changes, so many things, because I was talking about the 2007 study, right? Until then, there was a huge perception that abuse could happen only to girls. But after that study came out of that 53% of respondents who have shared that they're going through abuse, that they have gone through abuse till the age of 18, after the 53%, 56.7% were male boys. Till then, there was a huge reality among the judiciary practitioners who see girls are the only victims of child abuse. So they use the IPC laws against rape, molestation, sexual harassment, or all the laws that has been already in practice to protect women from all such issues. They consider abuse is also happening only to girls. But after the study, they consider male as equally vulnerable towards this problem. And after some 5 years of consultations with different policymakers, child right activists, everyone, only in 2012, POXO comes in, protection of children from sexual offenses. But when we're talking about law, the law clearly states protection of children from sexual offenses. But people who are all available in this meet could see, like, when is the first time that you got to know about POXO? When is the first time that you got to know about POXO, the word as a word? Mostly in newspapers or news, when a case has been registered. That is when we get a perception. Till 2000, we were also under that perception. Only when a case has been filed, POXO is the law that has been used. But POXO stands for Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses. It has already failed to protect the children from sexual offense. Then why there is a need of law? But the law clearly says it is recommending, it is created as guideline for different stakeholders, like what a parent is supposed to teach. It is giving a curriculum in the provisions. It is asking the school to create a committee under which it is asking the school management to conduct periodical awareness programs for the children. Similarly, it is giving guidelines for medical professionals, counselors, law enforcement. What are the things that they have to be aware of so that they could essentially be in the prevention part? And same with POSH as well. POSH is also prevention of sexual harassment at workplace for women. It is also giving a guideline on what is an organization is supposed to do by creating a policy under a committee, so that it has to create enough awareness so that the situation shouldn't be prevailing in that environment. That is what the ultimate aim of creating laws. But the implementers, the people who are in the implementation, doesn't understand the overall purview of why the law being created. So mostly they have been into only the grievance or else redressal process. because of which, and there is a huge gap in sensitivity of how they take cases of that in hands. And that is where we also wanted every common persons to be knowing of this laws, so that our sensitivity level would one point of time would ask or push the law enforcement agents to be more understandable about all the sensitive approaches, so that they carefully deal this law. Yes, so that is a huge development that we are seeing, but still there is a huge gap as well that I'm not denying. But if every people are more aware of about all these laws and why its existence, we could come up with more ways of questioning the right people at the right time.
Sandhyan, I have a question.
Yes, yes.
So, we have child line that is 1098, right? So, from your experience, could you share how effective has it been when it was launched and how effective it has been till now? And with specific context to situations where parents are contributors of child sexual abuse.
Okay. So the first question being like Childline, how effective it is. So Childline is a visionary project that was being done by this, and it was handed over to government, Minister of Women and Child Development, completely to it as an NGO. Childline is the one who is an implementation partner. Like they are the one who created, but funding being done by Minister of Women and Child Development. So they have received so many calls and they have rescued so many. But the thing is, when a people is at the desperate end, who's in a distress situation reaching out for help, there have been practical difficulties. At the same time, there have been substantial evidence of how the system in itself has failed to create that as a benchmark, unlike like UK's helpline, childline, or else other countries' childline. India has received so many calls, but that has been a huge number that they put forth in their website or something. But when it comes to the real help that they have been, because with our programs, we usually do a demo call to 1098 asking for help. And most of the times, especially with the child marriage context or else child abuse, that we pack like 150 or thousands of children and we do demo call, the call wouldn't connect. No one at the receiving end would pick up the call and say. And we would invite the members from Childline to do certain calls. They would just I was saying like this is how the people would be serving someone like you at that end. So you have to wait. So this has been mostly like so upset to see like how a system has been failing, especially in front. So we teach a lot like you have to reach out to 1098. 1098 is something where you can get help. There is an Anna or Akka who can help you out. But in reality, when they couldn't see that in their real environment, the whole system collapsed. So that is also one thing that I just wanted to add up in the session, saying like whatever that we talk with children, they don't have role models. They don't have seen that reality of how that things works, especially in context of child abuse. We say like bodies, boundaries, consent, all of that. But in real time, are their parents respect their boundaries? Not in every cases. So there is a huge conflict in what we teach them, at the same time what they reflect back. And especially when we're talking about the traffic signals and other things. So that is also a huge failed concept where we, as one whole generation, we are giving them a wrong perception of what a yellow or orange light signify. In most of our conversation, whenever we do awareness session, children say like orange or yellow is too ready. But that is not the actual intent why the signal has been created. So that is where we feel like we need more role models to give them a better understanding of whatever our narratives have been. So to the question, Childline, it's not effective, but from last year, it has been completely moved from the private to from an NGO to the government is completely undertaking it. Okay. So already an NGO who has took up it's their baby. They haven't serviced to the full. Now the government has fully taken it. Still, we couldn't see that much of hope or else reliability in terms of how we could seek up to it. So that is the thing. And second is parents contributing to sexual abuse. With the cases that we come up with, one thing that we more like, our experience of how we have started our journey of starting with Nirbaya's incident and wanted to create safe cities, all of that, conducting safety audits, all of that, and doing several missions and other things. But over a period of time, we realized that parents or the families is the first thing that we need to target it. So more than creating safe cities, we ideally wanting to create safe homes. Okay. So doing from a macro to a micro thing, one step at a time, because both victims and perpetrators are raised from homes. They doesn't come from a different planet or else different environment. Both are given a same love, same affection, same care, same treatment. One has been failed in a society who have that perpetuating thoughts. One has been given lack of awareness, because of which they been into a submissive or else a victimized zone. So we idealize all this conversation to be happening in their homes, where parents can give a where parents can contribute to the maximum of raising children in a way with a complete awareness, so that they doesn't raise a victim and they doesn't raise a perpetrator. That is the one thing. And how how they have been also been abusers in terms, that is also one of the main area where a lot many conversations to be happening, because both from responsive mechanism, whether it is psychological or else whether it is legal part, they fail to recognize, because usually like almost like 3 years back, we used to screen a video on 5 years of POCSO that has been conducted by Majlis NGO in terms of understanding how POCSO cases have been dealt in Mumbai and Delhi courts. Last 2 years back, 10 years of POCSO has been reviewed, and we have the study report came in. So in most of the cases, the judgments or else lawyers and judges fail to recognize considering abuse or sexual abuse that is happening within the family context could be failing, because they don't consider it as a problem, because they always see it as a false case. And comparatively, when the person is outside, who is a stranger, they have so much of motivation to convict that person. But when it is a family member, the judiciary part is working slowly to see like at any point of time the child might withdraw the case. At any point of time, this can consider as a false case. That is the problem. And this substantiates another belief where it says like family members use it as an advantage. That is also one of the reason why 95% of the reported cases have like known people, and that constitutes majorly the family members, family friends, all of them, because they don't get an access to abuse a strange child that they don't know. So they take time to sexually groom, to emotionally groom, emotionally manipulate a child. Slowly they do non-contact forms of abuse, then contact forms of abuse. All of this goes over the time. Okay. So even when we want to say the movie about Chitta, right? It was wonderfully touched the topic, but it is also giving the other way of known people doesn't harm a child. So there have been situations like that. It is like one point of time we give so much of awareness in evolving the mindset of people. There is another drastic effect that brings them back to square one. So that is the problem that we are seeing. Is there any organized crime investigation or agency possibly active? Oh, I'm not sure about this. But there have been different things. Say, for example, the online sexual abuse. When we see child pornography is the term that is being commonly used, but child pornography is not the right term, because pornography is something that has been done with two adults who can sexually consent to. When a child is being involved in a pornographic video or else with or without their consent, a child can't give a consent to a sexual activity. Until the age of 18, no person can give a consent to a sexual activity. So it is done without the consent. Even if the child consent couldn't be taken into account. That is what the law clearly says. So child pornography can be replaced as child sexual abuse imagery. So in internet or else in videos, if you come across any of the situation, RM India, that is an NGO who works with international internet worldwide forum. They create a hotline where this link of this video or anything that can be posted there, and they remove the content within 24 hours. They get the metadata of the original video that has been shot, and wherever the video being posted in different social media or else different available contents, they track all those videos and deletes that in the internet. So this is one way. Like this, there have been individual, like separate or else private organizations or else NGOs who does certain activities like that. And we don't have a government system to do all such things. Say, for example, when RM India was asking the Ministry of Human Affairs to Information Technology to give all the service providers to enable this thing, the government doesn't pass this direction to any of the service providers. Okay, so that is the reality. So it was being asked like around like 2018. It's been like almost 6 years. Still, the government doesn't issued any of the service providers to be linked up with this RM India's hotline. So that is the reality that we are seeing.
And Sandhiyan, you were saying something about having role models.
Yes.
Could you elaborate more on how to develop a role model, how to be a role model? In what context you are talking?
Okay. See, so this is where we usually have a conversation. So we are educating children, just like how we are educating maths, science, all of that. But when it comes to challenging the practices or else challenging the attitudes that they have been with, say for example, till the age of 15, a child doesn't have that much of boundaries consent in practice. When we are newly introducing them, you can talk this with your parent. Even if your parent aren't talking about this, you can always go back to talk about it. Say, for example, at an age of 2 or 3, a child has been negated to talk about their own body parts. Shame, puppy shame is the only narrative that we are constantly teaching. So, are we allowed to talk about private parts right from our homes? No, it is not happening. So, whenever we are teaching this in school setting, we can say like, we are saying like, whenever you face any inappropriate touch over your private part, you can always go back to your home and talk to them. When this conversation is not happening within their homes or not being told by the parents, a child wouldn't feel empowered to talk back home. So that is where education lies. Justice in education, it is not empowering. So these conversations need empowerment. Say when there are people who are also doing that, who are also walking their talk. Say, for example, if I'm a parent, I teach my kid about all these things. And I'm saying, like, even as a parent, if I have the right to bath you or else dress up you, if you're not comfortable, you can always say up to that to me. I respect your boundary. I respect your choice. So if I am modeling that, that is when the child believes that I can always go up to my father or his mother to talk about anything that I am worried with. Say, for example, as kids, all of us would have asked about like how we have been born, what kind of responses that we have been given. That is also one of the instances like how sex ed talks develops. So there is lot many such instances how teachable moments works, what kind of responses being given. If the child is not given the right answers at the right time, the child goes and pick up those answers in different other means that might not be the right source. At the same time, if it's asking the wrong person might use the child in a wrong way. That is also the another concern that we see. So when you're talking about role models, parents, teachers, who could actively model those behaviors, whatever that they are teaching, or we are saying like you can say no to anything that you don't want. If the child is saying that after a struggle, if you are respecting that, then the child again feels confident to talk about. So that is what I'm meaning more about, especially in the context of things that are not being told. I was talking about the shame, puppy shame thing or else private part context. Even at an age of 30 or 35, we find struggle in talking even the private things. See, even if we have an urinary infection or anything with our body, we doesn't go immediately go and talk to our parents or else even our partners. We are just enduring that pain or bearing up for 2 or 3 days. Only then we feel comfortable, or else when we are not able to handle it on our own, only then we go and talk to them. That is the huge stigma that you are battling up with. So we need those essential conversations to be happening, so that we need role models who can actively practice, so that we doesn't feel like it's an awkward topic, or else it is not something that can be shared at instantly.
Understood.
Okay, so there is the question that has been added, whether consent is relevant when the act in itself is illegal. Yeah, that is the important question. Say, for example, even when you're talking about POXO cases, at an age of 16, where both the individual consent to have a sex relationship, both boy and girl being considered, even the act is illegal, but the consent is the only term that will be. See, and there is a huge conversation of reducing the age of consent from 18 to 16. Still, it's a debate that has been going on. So, consent is the fact with which most of the time, say, for example, 3 years back, there was an incident that took place in a school in Coimbatore, where a girl child wrote a suicide note and she killed by suicide. Okay. But the whole school and the wife of the staff against whom the case has been filed, they defend the abuser, saying like it's the girl who provocatively advanced her interest over the male staff. How the male staff would bear up with. So they were defending the male staff to be protected from the law, saying that this is ultimately the child's will. So in that point of view, consent is the only thing that has been putting the girl child over there. So well, it is legally it is not approved one where the child can give consent or else get into a sexual activity. But how the law can toe in that, whether if the child is 15 years or else 14 years, if the child is still having that own interest or else consent, whether the child is the one who persuade or something like that, the adult over there has to understand a child can't give a consent to this act. I am the one who would be prosecuted. And even if the child is interested towards me, I am in the right age to educate the child. This is not something, this is totally inappropriate. So this is the situation that the male staff has to handle. But the male staff use that situation, use that as an advantage to exploit her, saying that the child is the one who advanced. So this is the toe line that the lawyer has picked up over the trial cases, and the charges has been added. But over the period of time, the person got bailed and he came out. See, that's also the another reality. But consent always matter in cases of sexual harassment or sexual abuse. So whether it is legal or illegal, as a matter of fact, that is also one of the toe line usually in like courtrooms. They use it as a toe line to charge or else to validate or else to invalidate the person's case.
Sandhyan?
Yes.
Yes, I have one final question.
Yes.
Can I? I just want to know how the victimization of child victim affects the rehabilitation process of the victim, especially the child victim, and how it differs from the general victims other than child.
Okay. So with our own experience, what we say is, it's that is where we emphasize a lot in terms of prevention is possible. When prevention is possible, everyone can work towards prevention, because when a child is exposed to an abusive environment, it's a long journey for the child, where the child has to be put into different other situations, where the child would end up facing different people from different departments, different stakeholders, where they can be insensitive, where they can be like unfair in not hearing to the needs of the child, where re-victimization and re-traumatization could happen. But what ultimately re-victimization could happen is letting them feel like this abuse in itself, it's far better than the journey that I'm going through. This is the hard reality that most of the victims endure with. So uh, I shouldn't have told this to anyone, because of which I'm facing through a lot of things. That is also one of the constant thing why victims don't speak up, that we are seeing across different sectors in our reality, even with in cases of adults, victim shaming, victim blaming. This is the most cultural effects that put, and the whether it is child abuse or any other form, all our narratives and conversations have been more victim centric. We focus hugely on the victims, because of which we mentally traumatize them, whether it is a news that is carrying the information about the incident, whether it has been the legal practice, legal recourse, or else even in terms of carrying them or concerning them. All our questions, all our concerns have been only towards the victim. Okay, so in that basis, they always have that because of this incident only I'm going through all of this. So I shouldn't have told this, or else. So it has an emotional impact that they carry throughout their lifetime. So that is where the rehabilitation process takes a long time, because when a person is disclosing their abuse, if it's been told to the right person at an early stage, and if the person handles it sensitively, giving them enough guidance and moral support to move on with different other areas, the child can be rehabilitated very sooner. And if the person is taking too much time, and still if the person has given it to the right person, still the rehabilitation process so cool. But if the person has taken quicker time to tell it to someone where the person is totally insensitive, the rehabilitation process takes a long term, because they are clueless on what is.
Sandhiyan, we can't hear you.
1 second. Okay.
Yeah.
The app got closed. 1 second.
Okay. Yeah. Now we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what I was saying. So it's the rehabilitation in itself, it's totally depending on the persons. We call it as the support systems. If the support systems are very caring and concerning and put the ultimate need of the victim to the front, it's a quite easy process. Still, it's not uh, uh, the ideal need that the victim wants, but at least that would give them a justice kind of, or else a better relief kind of thing. But if the support systems are weakened, if the support system doesn't serve the actual purpose, then it's a overall traumatic process for the victims to go through.
Sandhyan, if you want to share something about Aware, you can.
Yeah. So Aware as an organization, we have started basically after Nirbhaya incident, but over the years we understood that it needs a comprehensive approach to work on gender-based violence or sexual violence. So we work with schools, colleges, workspaces, communities, online spaces, residential communities, all of that, to create necessary conversations with different stakeholders. So when we are reaching out to a school, we talk with HMs, we work with teachers. Only then we work with children. Similarly, if it's a gated community, we work with parents only then. So we have to work in a model from top to bottom, so that ultimately we doesn't want to put the entire burden over the children to take care of themselves. That is also another concern that we have seen over the years, because whether it is environment, whether it is education, or else whether it is awareness, we put so much of burden to the children to take care of the next generation. The world is on crisis, climate is changing, environment is polluting, children are not safe, and we ideally bring all those conversations to children. So on that basis, our primary audience is adults, where we focus on certain training and sensitizations to be changing their attitudes and perceptions, with which we carry this conversation to children. So we are a volunteering organization, so where we offer different volunteering and the internships, all of that. And over the years, like almost like last 3 years, we work with young professionals like law, media, social workers, psychologists, to work on the issues, because we have seen the ground reality of how one professional and the existing situations are working towards all of these issues, and we see like there is a huge gap in sensitization, oral sensitivity. So we work with budding professionals, catching them young in their college premises, so that we give them, offer them trainings, certification courses, all of that, so that down the line, like 5 years or 10 years, they become a sensitive professionals in taking care of all of these issues that we work with. Okay, so we are available on Aware India 2020 in all the social media platforms. You could just follow us. You can get connected with awareness programs, awareness campaigns that we roll out in social media as well. You could follow those messages or else post as well. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandhiyan.
Thank you.
The
Thank you,
discussion was
Kritika.
very nice. You shed light on the harsh realities of child sexual abuse and the challenges faced by those working to prevent it. And you reminded that the child sexual abuse is not limited to the good touch, for teaching the good touch, bad touch. So we need to cover all the forms of abuses. So it was very eye-opening, I think, for everyone. Thank you so much for your presentation today and your valuable time.
Thank you, Kritika, and thank you, Subramani and Law Comrade, and to all the participants on a Saturday evening to spend all your 2 hours of precious time to hear through this conversation. So we hope to take these conversations back and sustain it through different spaces that we carry through. So thanks a lot for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sandhya. Your dedication and expertise has actually enriched our participants' views and thought process about child sexual abuse. And thank you so much for your time, spending your energy and your time in our forum. I definitely would say that our participants would, have had a better understanding of how to deal with child sexual abuse and how to prevent harms and crimes against children. So with that, we end our second webinar in our Child Rights and Wellbeing series under Law Comrade. So we will keep posted about our next webinar in the WhatsApp group and via email. So we request participants, and also I forgot to thank the participants who have spent 2 hours continuously on our session. So thank you so much, participants. And yes, so we'll keep you posted about the next webinar, and we hope to collaborate with you again, Sandhyan, for our future initiatives as well. So,
Sure.
so thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Have a weekend.